Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Clambo. And, of course, broadcasting on TV1. And, as we all know, that's part of the Capital Maharaja Group. And this morning, to take a break away from the corruption and the bond and all sorts of jolly things, is a matter much, much closer to the hearts and the minds of the people of Sri Lanka. That's right, this morning we're going to talk cricket. And to talk cricket is the new high-performance manager for Sri Lanka cricket, Mr. Simon Willis. Good morning to you, Simon.
Morning.
And 23 years at Kent, and you've joined Sri Lanka cricket.
Yes, started June 2016, so I've been here 10 months now.
Yes.
Been a very busy period for me, but thoroughly enjoying it. The people here have made me feel very welcome, and hopefully we've made a little bit of progress in those 10 months.
You missing the cold weather at all?
Definitely not missing January and February in England, that is for sure.
Right. Now then, how does, high performance manager, what does that mean? What do you all do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a number of people have asked me that since I've arrived. But I think the management, the president of Sri Lanka cricket identified a bit of a disconnection between the national team and everything else that went on underneath that. So a high performance manager really is someone to come in to set standards, put in processes that allow a continuous flow of players through to the national team over a period of time.
And this is a bit more involved than just making sure that the players turn up for practice.
Yeah, absolutely. This goes all the way down to the districts. So we've got to make sure we got the right people in the right places. So when I first arrived, we did a full review of what currently was going on. We started with appointing our district and provincial coaches, and that was some 70 coaches that we had to evaluate and reappoint, and then look at the programs that we were running at that level. But more closely to home, we restructured the whole high performance centre, as we now call it, at Ketarama, with a new management structure and more accountability for people working in that environment.
And how much typically, let's look at our first team, if you like, the national team. How much of time do they spend training or?
Yeah, I think sometimes they get criticised for maybe not being seen to be doing as much work as they actually do. There's a lot of work that goes on early morning. Players come in at 6:30, 7 o'clock to do their fitness sessions and gym sessions before going out to do their cricket skills. So they're pretty much, when they're not playing, they're pretty much in 5 days a week and have weekends off. So
all our cricketers at the national level are, let's say, professional cricketers?
Well, absolutely, and we're trying to make that a wider pool of players. We have our national performance squad now, as we call it, of 30 top contracted players in Sri Lanka, and they get full 24/7 support. So if they're not in the national team at the current time, they'll still be training and working on their skills with the coaches at Ketarama. But we're trying to filter that down further into our A-team squads and under-19 squads to make sure we get more contact time with them, so that not just their cricket skills are in a good place, but mentally and physically as well.
Questions coming in, and they want to know how important is discipline when it comes in terms of food, alcohol intake and so on, because obviously we've had wonderful once in a way. It's not an occurrence every day, but when we have people trying to open aircraft doors and so on mid-air. So in that context, how important is discipline when it comes to food?
I think, look, the modern game dictates the standard, and T20 now shows everybody how fit you have to be because of the intensity of the game. And I think players, since I've arrived, you know, are starting to realise that they want to be part of these big tournaments, you know, the IPL and the Big Bash, and they're seeing what players from other countries are doing to get selected. So from our point of view, it's a cultural thing. It has its challenges, particularly at the lower levels, the younger levels, where young players, you know, whose families might not have lots and lots of money. You know, we have to try to educate and support them as they come through the system.
And talking about the IPL, it was going to be one of my questions anyway. Is there something called too much cricket? I mean, don't they get exhausted? It's very, very demanding, the IPL, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the cricket calendar as it is now for an international cricketer is full on. You know, if they're playing on average 12 test matches per year, plus a 50-over tournament, and then the T20 tournaments, downtime is critical. And from our point of view of managing our players, it's really important that we know, you know, well in advance what's coming up, so that we might have to rotate players, we might have to rest players, so that when those big tournaments arrive, they're mentally fresh and physically able to perform at their best. And
obviously the overriding prime sort of interest would be the national interest, and the players would be required to play nationally first.
Yeah, absolutely, but we mustn't get away from giving players opportunities, and I think you can see that in other countries now, that even though there are international series going on, they're looking ahead to big tournaments coming up and saying, we need these players to get some T20 experience, and you know, England have certainly softened in that area recently, and a number of their players have got picked up in the recent IPL auction. So I think, yes, national interest is always of high importance, but we've got to make sure that we have the depth of player, that we allow some flexibility going forwards.
And talking about our own Asela Gunaratne being picked by the Indian Premier League, now does this spell disaster for Sri Lanka now?
Not at all. You know, for me, Asela is one of the nicest guys you ever meet. So for him to peak at the right time, just prior to the IPL auction, for me, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But as I say, at the moment, if you look at our players and the experience of T20 cricket they have, maybe in comparison to other countries, we're a little bit off the pace. So for us to have players involved in those tournaments, for me, is an added bonus. And we're looking at other ways that we can obviously fill the gap, as it were, and get our players more T20 experience going forward.
And Simon, tell me, are issues of pay and so on, have they been sorted? Do you think the players are content?
Well, look, it's always an ongoing thing, isn't it, with regards to players. We want to make sure that when they go out on the field, that they've got both eyes on the ball. You know, so it's important to have ongoing discussions and find out what the key issues are. Is it really about money, or is it about support staff? Is it about scheduling? So for me, it's really important that communication between all parties is fluid and ongoing and evolving, and if we can do that, then hopefully the big issues tend to go away.
And do our cricketers have sort of, you talk about support services, do they have things like advisors to advise them on financial matters, taxation, and obviously opportunities to earn, to add to their earnings?
Yeah, you know, that's really important from a point of view. Cricket is a short career in some ways, because you never know when you're going to get an injury that might set you back. So most players in the international team will have their own personal support, whether that be a cricket agent that opens doors for them commercially. But from our point of view, it's an area that we need to develop. You know, from all angles, we need to make sure we develop our players not only as cricketers but as people. So a lot of work is going into devising plans for the softer skills, as I call them. You know, just simple things as English language for some of our younger players. You know, to help to develop that, so that if they are in an international team and going overseas, they can communicate with people that might open doors in the future when cricket finishes.
Indeed. So, you know, obviously our cricketers don't want to be receiving calls from the taxman or whoever else is chasing payment for whatever. So do you all have advisors who help them in those areas?
Well, I think again that's down to the agents that they employ on their behalf to make sure that they've got the necessary financial advice or accountants to do that. From an SLC point of view, you know, if they need help, then I have no doubt that we will always be there to help them. But initially that's down to the players to look after their own situation, given everybody's circumstances is different.
And the young people who enter the system, do you have some sort of a mentoring program? How do you treat the new entrants?
Again, it's a process that's evolving. The key thing for me when young players come into our system is that they feel comfortable, that we give them as much support as we can. We're looking to implement some national development programs from the age of under 15 upwards. So at the end of major provincial tournaments, we select a group of 20 players and we bring them in for a 2-week period where we treat them like international cricketers, so they have a flavour of what's expected. We can bring in some of those softer skills, lifestyle skills, whatever you want to call them, and start that education process from a young age, so that when they get to the international level, they know the expectations, they have all the support in place, and as I say, they can just go out and play cricket.
Another question. Niroshan, the matter of Niroshan being removed from the removed from the T20 tournament. Was it the T20, the last match, for dissent?
Oh yes.
How did that impact on you? Did you think that there was some further training to be done there?
Oh look, Niroshan is a very, very talented cricketer,
right?
And he's a competitor like a few others in our team. And I think we've got to be careful. We've got to, be careful not to take that competitive edge out of a player, because it's what makes them.
Yeah.
I think also there's a responsibility of the players to be aware of, that we're in an entertainment industry, and that young people are watching the game, and that we're role models to those young players coming through. So I think, in this instance, it may be harshly treated because, it's high competition, playing one of the best sides in the world. And sometimes I think common sense is important when these decisions are being made.
So how do you measure the level of dissent? And
Yeah, luckily that's not my decision. That's the people at ICC that have to put that in place. But I just think that we want competition, we want characters in the game, and we've got to be careful that we don't spoil that.
Indeed, talk about characters in the game. We've had, over the years, we've had wonderful characters from Kent's own Colin Cowdrey I was reading up about it. He actually played cricket up to 1975. It was a long time. I remember on one occasion he went out to bat against the West Indies with a arm in plaster. And so, these big characters and full of flavour and so on. And of course we mustn't forget Mr. Botham, who used to fill all the grounds up with the mere mention of his name in the team. What have we got? Have we got some big name in the making yet?
Oh, look, I don't like to pick out individuals, but I think the one thing about this country over the years is it has a knack of finding characters and very unorthodox players that keep the game moving forwards. And for me, that was one of the really big incentives to coming into work over here, is that the passion for the game is second to none. It is a religion, and everywhere I've gone, around the country, visiting various districts and associations, you can see that it's very, very obvious. So, you know, for me, we've got a lot of talent coming through, particularly under 19 level. We've got a lot of good players, and for me, in my role, it's really important that we make sure that we give them the opportunities and the support to allow them to come through and flourish at international level.
And Simon, do you have any direct input in the selection of the team?
Yeah, no, I'm not a selector. The selection, national selection panel is 4 people who, you know, do come and ask from time to time where players are at, whether that be physically, mentally, or even from a point of view of form. Because I do get around and watch a lot of domestic cricket, club cricket, age group cricket. So if they come and ask me, then I willingly give them as much information as we can so that they can make better informed decisions. Ultimately, we're there to make sure that they get it right more times than not.
And you've been here, like you say, since about 10 months now.
Yeah, that's right.
And how's the Sri Lankan passion for the game? How's that doing?
It's fantastic. You know, I'm a bit of a cricket nuffy, if truth be known. So for me, this is like Christmas every day, working in Sri Lanka, because cricket is always at the forefront of people's minds. And you know, wherever I go, you know, the conversation always starts with cricket. And you know, then I find that generally nothing else is discussed because people are so passionate about it. And you know, the people that I work with at Ketarama, the coaches, the support staff, you know, it's not just a 9-to-5 job. For them, it shows that they really love the game because they're always there whenever the players need them. And you know, that's really important to me. And you know, I think, as I say, if we can just do a couple of little things that allow our players to go out and play with confidence and freedom, then for me, I think there's some exciting times ahead.
And going back to this, this business about what you do with a player, what is it on a practical level? Is it to hone a certain aspect of some bowling action or batting? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think to be fair, when we start to get to top level, international level, players have got the ability, because otherwise how they got there. So for me, it's very individual. It's about looking at the player and understanding where they're at that moment in time. Players are always going to go in and out of form. So for me, it's really important that we don't panic during the tough times, that we actually sit down and have a conversation with the player and say, okay, look, you know your game better than I do. How can we help you? How can we support you? What do you need to be put in place to allow you to get back to your best? And we have those conversations with players on a daily basis. Yes, obviously you have your team stuff, your squad sessions in the lead up to any series, but ultimately, even those, you're talking with players and saying, what do you need today? So for me, it's about trying to work out what each individual needs and putting that in place to allow them to have confidence in what they're doing.
And Simon, how's Sri Lanka cricket? Are we kind of recovering with the exit of, or the retiring of people like Mr. Muralidharan, Mr. Sangakkara, Mr. Jayawardene, and all these people who became household names and part and parcel of our wider family in Sri Lanka? Absolutely.
You're talking about world-class legends.
Yeah.
So to be able to fill that void in the short term is always challenging. And for me, patience is a word that we need to use. I feel we've made some great progress since I've arrived. You know, the head coach, Graham Ford, one of his strengths is getting the best out of players and identifying players who can perform at international level. So for me, if you look at some of the players that have come into the team in the last 10 months, they're players who are exciting, but not only that, are mentally tough players. and that's important at the top level, is that players can cope with the tough times as well as the good times. And for me, you know, I think we've got a few players there that in 5 years' time will be saying, thankfully we've stuck with them and supported them, and now we're starting to get the payback.
So do you think Sri Lanka is making up a world-class team for the next World Cup?
Well, that's the challenge. That's why we've all come here to work with Sri Lanka cricket, because we want to win the World Cup.
It's a long time, Simon. 1996.
It is. But at least you've won a World Cup.
Are there some countries that haven't?
Yeah, well, England have not won a 50-over World Cup. They won a 2020. But for me, we have to just focus on the here and now. You know, we have to make sure that we look at the short term, go day by day, make sure that we learn from our bad experiences, and build a plan towards that World Cup. And hopefully, by then we'll have a settled team that has got confidence and can go out and, you know, hopefully be the underdogs that come through like they did in '96.
And just talking about high performance, obviously there's a financial cost to this. Does it make a real difference?
Well, only time will tell. I think that all you can do is look at systems around the world, and we're looking at the best. We want to be world class. We want to compete with the top international nations, which, you know, at the moment you're probably looking at India, England, Australia, and if you look at their systems in place, they invest in their pathway, as we call it. You know, unfortunately, domestic games around the world used to churn out players, but for whatever reason, the domestic competition isn't quite at the level that we need it at to produce the international players. So we need processes in place that bridge the gap, and that's what we hope our high performance programs will be doing.
How much of a case is there to bring in sort of legendary former players within the establishment, Sri Lanka cricket, to sort of will it help? Will it boost the team? Absolutely,
you know, and I think it's really important to identify the need and then identify the right person to come in and deliver that. And you know, from my point of view, there's lots of experience and knowledge. You know, there's a lot of successful cricketers in this country that have represented Sri Lanka, and one of the first things I did when I came was speak to people like Mahela and Sangha and Aravinda and past coaches in Dav Watmore to really get a good understanding of what it is that makes the top Sri Lankan cricket team. So we've learned from past experiences, we've got their views about what needs to be put in place for the future, and we'll be looking to bring players in mentoring roles, giving players talks from time to time on their experiences, and hopefully building that relationship even stronger in the years to come. And
how is it best to nurture a player that's been spotted? Is that a really tough task?
Oh, look, I find that the best part of the job, when you're walking around watching a game of cricket and you see a player and you think, geez, there's something there. For me, that's the exciting thing. Then to put the programs in place and make sure that we're giving them everything they need. We've got to keep their feet on the ground. We don't want them getting too far ahead, because I think you can prejudge too early, and therefore that brings with it a lot of expectation for our young players. So we need to manage that process carefully, but ultimately when a guy goes out and makes his international debut, from spotting them at a young age, that's why we're in the job.
I see. And just talking, going away from it, out of Sri Lanka, the tragic sort of circumstances that afflicted Pakistani cricket, so obviously impacts on the game worldwide. Is it a very long time off before the confidence will return for teams to start visiting Pakistan, do you think?
I think the key thing is that we need a strong international game, and we need a strong Pakistan, we need a strong West Indies, we need as many strong cricketing nations as possible to maintain interest. Unfortunately, what happened in Pakistan is out of our control, and I think the important thing is that all we can do is take the advice of the specialists from a security point of view on an ongoing basis, and hopefully that will change in time and allow people to go back and play cricket in Pakistan. Obviously the Pakistan Cricket Board have taken their domestic T20 final there recently, and maybe that's the start of building the confidence again, because for me, to have those experiences around the world is wonderful, and for me, it's sad that cricket has suffered in that particular country.
Back to Sri Lanka cricket, there was in the past all sorts of controversies to do with the administration and so on, and depoliticizing it and trying to meet the ICC requirements on that score. Are the players, is the team, the squad, are they now sort of, are they being left alone to get on with what they do? And are they, is any of that other stuff impacting on them?
Oh, look, I think anybody that's involved with Sri Lankan cricket always keeps a close eye on what's going on, because they care about the game and they want the team to do well. When it comes to the ICC stuff, I know the board is working closely with them to make sure that we have plans in place that they approve and that allows us to have a strong financial future and sustainable success for the team on the park. And a recent visit by the ICC chief executive here, he was very impressed with how things have worked over the last 12 months since the new president came into post, and we've shown them our ideas for the next 12 months, and they're very encouraged. So for me, there's no doubt we can always do things better, but as long as we're going forwards and people see that things are improving, then that's a healthy state for me.
And have you, in your 10 months now, have you spotted some chap who is going to be the next star?
Oh, look, I think
you spotted a number of them.
I think, as I say, I'm really excited about the future for Sri Lankan cricket. If I'm making comparables to England, I was amazed at the amount of talent here. I'm very excited. Even from a fast bowling point of view, people say that we haven't got any fast bowlers. Well, if we haven't got fast bowlers, then we need to become skillful bowlers, and I'm starting to see that in the pathway. We've got Chaminda Vas on board, working with our young bowlers to pass on his great experience and knowledge. So for me, I think the future looks bright. We mustn't get too far ahead of ourselves, but if you look at the performances of our national team, our A team and our under-19s over the last 10 months, there's been significant improvement, and that's down to the players, and I hope that we can continue that in the future. Indeed.
Simon Willis, thank you very much for being on Newsline, and very good luck to you in your efforts to get Sri Lanka back on top again, and hopefully win another World Cup.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
And that's it from Newsline today. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow morning. In the meantime, take care and God bless.